What's going on, guys? Welcome to Kyle's Cars. Kind of at the end of my day here, so I thought I'd keep my promise to you guys and show you this Silverado that I got from Carvana, go in a little bit more detail. If you haven't seen the video, I actually talked about my buying experience with Carvana. During that, I said I'd go over this truck a little bit, and so aside from the actual specifics of buying it, I just want to talk about the truck as a vehicle in general. So, without any more delay, let's get right into it. So, the truck is a 2016 Chevy Silverado. It's two-wheel drive, just got a V6. It's a regular cab short bed, LT, pretty much the lowest option truck aside from a WT, which I don't even think you can get in any color except for like white. So this is pretty much as bare bones as you can get a truck like this. All right, so in general, you know, all these trucks are automatic now. I don't even think you can get this truck in a manual transmission. So it's got the 4.3 liter V6 and the 6-speed automatic, which for the 2014 through 2018, all that was pretty much the lowest standard trim for these full-size trucks. And if any of you know how I use my trucks, I haul a lot of cars, and so I can imagine how some of you guys might be wondering, you know, how can you go from somebody that, you know, when I first started this channel, I think I actually had a F250, light duty F250 with a 5.4 in it. Then I went on and I, for a short while, had a 99 Dodge Ram 1500 with a 5.9 gas motor in it, another F150 with another 5.4 in it, and then most recently that Dodge that was diesel. So how can I go from having those pretty large engine trucks to a real small motor like this? And pretty much the answer kind of lies with the specs on it. Now, if you're familiar with the lineups and the engines that come in full-size trucks, you probably realize that for many years, Chevrolet, GMCs, they offered pretty much two different V8s in their half-ton pickups. They were the 4.8 and the 5.3, and they've always had the 4.3 V6 going back all the way to like 1988. Now, the 4.3 before was, you couldn't really do anything with it except commute and throw some stuff in the bed. You really had to get at least a 4.8 to pull any kind of trailer with it. That all changed in 2014 because they came out with the new Ecotec 3 engine series. So this shares a lot of similarities with the 5.3, and now they don't even offer a 4.8. Instead, they've got this 4.3 V6. They still have a 5.3 that they offer, and then they also have a 6.2 liter. Now, if you go to a 2019 or newer truck, you can also get a turbocharged 4-cylinder. And I don't know the specs of that. That wasn't available in this body style truck, so go figure. So, you know, the specs on this 4.3 Ecotec 3 engine are actually a little bit better than the previous 4.8 liter V8 engine. That was, they called it the Vortec, but it's really an LS. You know, they're actually about the same, if not better, depending on what you're specifically looking at. I'm not going to get too deep into the actual numbers and all the specifications on the different motors, but there was a really interesting spreadsheet I saw. I'll try to throw it up on the screen right now, where basically it shows that the previous 4.3, previous 4.8, previous Ford 4.6, and the 4.7 that's available in some Dodge trucks actually underperforms compared to this new 4.3. So I wanted to give it a shot, and if you watch the Carvana video that I did, I had 7 days to try it, so it wasn't like I was locked in with it. And I'm really glad that I gave it a chance, because in reality, it definitely is not a V8. Even though on paper you would think it should perform the same. It has like 285 horsepower and over 300 foot-pounds of torque on paper, but in the real world, you definitely know that there just isn't that big of a motor in it. Just something about the way it delivers power. So I did get a chance to tow a car with it, and I got some video of that. So how about I just go ahead and throw that in there so you can kind of see what I went through. Here's what we're going to be towing: a 2000 Jeep Cherokee on a 18-foot dovetail trailer, all steel deck. So this setup for this truck, so my truck with the Ecotec 3 V6 regular cab short bed is factory rated to tow a 6,000-pound trailer, and I think we're right on the edge of that here, if not maybe a couple 100 pounds one way or the other. I'm not going to go and weigh it up and give you the exact numbers on it, because if it doesn't tow this, then I've got a problem. This is pretty much what I need the truck to do, and on paper it should be able to do it. And I thought, you know, I had a hard time finding any real information of people accomplishing this. One guy said that, you know, he hauled cars on one that he rented in another video, but you know, there was no real evidence of it to say how it did, or you know, if it was something that you could do on a regular basis. So I'm hoping that making this video for you guys will help you out a little bit. Now, if you do get one of these trucks, there's a pretty good likelihood that you're gonna have to get this part. So my truck came with just a cover here, and there was no way to plug in one of these 7-way plugs. So I thought that you could pop the cover off and that would expose the plug, and found that there was no way to pop that cover off. And I looked in the owner's manual and said that you had to go and buy this plug from the dealer. So luckily it's not terribly expensive, but it's not exactly cheap either. It's about 50 bucks for this plug. It's easy to install. I don't know why GM doesn't just put that in at the factory. It's already wired up for it, but the plug itself isn't installed for some reason. But literally took 2 seconds. It's just plug and play, not even worth making a video about. But yeah, so that's one thing to know about it. So I'm going to be judging the truck on 3 main factors. First and foremost is the power to pull. You know, driving around not in tow haul mode, it's a little deceptive because it kind of keeps the engine speed pretty low, and it's kind of lazy around town. And I've tried putting it into tow haul mode, and I've noticed that there is quite a bit more oomph in it, so to speak, with that engaged. So we're going to be looking at how it takes off with this weight and see if it's even drivable. And then once we get past that point, I'll talk a little bit about the actual load control. So when you have a truck with a short wheelbase, which is the only way to get this in a V6 and be able to haul this big of a trailer, with this short wheelbase, I'm a little bit worried about how it handles the weight shifting around behind it, and you know, how it will handle sway, getting around corners, and then, you know, stopping. So we'll go ahead and we'll jump in the truck and we'll take off and see how it does. So here we are in the truck, got the trailer behind us. Let me turn you guys around. Alright, so starting off, as you can see, our average fuel economy is about 24 miles to the gallon, which is definitely gonna be gone pulling this trailer. So go ahead and put her in drive, kick on that tow haul mode, get around here. Just initial impressions in the driveway, you know, before you even get out in the road, see if it seems pretty okay. And yeah, I mean, definitely know there's some weight behind you just around here. Haven't gotten on the road yet, but it's acting about as I would expect it to act. nothing alarming jumping out at me saying that this won't be safe just yet. It's definitely seems to be okay. Brakes are okay-ish. You know, I drove with this same trailer with my old 2002 F-150 without a brake controller pretty much the whole time I had it, and so I'm pretty used to this. The dealer will not sell me the factory brake controller setup, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do, what will be the cleanest installation of it. Like I said, this is not enough weight that I'm seriously concerned not having a brake controller, seeing as I have enough experience without one already. We're revving out pretty good, but we're coming right up to speed pretty good here. I don't have it to the floor. Transmission doesn't seem to know what exactly it should do with this kind of weight behind it. Had me revving out a little higher than I think I really needed to. But we're going 60 miles an hour, reasonably quick here. One thing I do want to look at is my transmission temperature. Let's see here. There we go. 187, so just a couple degrees higher than normal. I'm going to actually leave that screen on and pay a little bit of attention to it. Make sure, because you can see it's already climbing pretty quick. Usually I'm right at around 180. Anyways, I'm going to probably just get through these couple of hills here, and I'm going to set you guys down because I really want to pay attention to what I'm doing, and this much weight on this truck and not being used to it. But yeah, it's running through here without any real issue that I can see. We're coming down a hill. We're at 190 on the trans temps. Once I start getting north of 210, I'm going to start really trying to slow down on it just a little bit. Now, I'm supposed to have some type of hill descent control system here. And we're coming down a pretty good hill, so we'll see if that kicks on. Doesn't seem to be just yet. Give it a little bit of brake, see what happens. Yeah, kicked it. Yep, grade braking active. Yep, good. All right, I'm gonna set you guys down. We finally made it. So what are my thoughts and impressions now that I've completed this trip? The trip was probably about 30 miles or so. A little bit of highway driving, not interstate driving, just like highway, like 60 mile an hour driving, and a little good amount of back road driving. Well, seems to handle the trailer fine. You get a little shake at 60, you know, going down the road because of this kind of weight. I think I got it pretty close to 20% tongue weight on this one, so I don't think it was anything wrong with the distribution of my load. I think it's a short truck, so you get a lot of weight on it, you get a little shimmy. The grade braking system is okay. At one point it did kick on as I was coming down a hill and going to make a turn, and the engine made a backfire noise as it did it, and that kind of freaked me out a little bit. And also it jacks your transmission fluid temperatures every time it does it, and it takes a long time to bring them back down. I never got outside of a safe transmission fluid temperature range. I hung out just under 210 at the worst of it. And for most of it, I was around 190, 199-ish, you know, that 10-degree range, but it did get up to 210 at one point. So yeah, that's pretty much what I got to say about that. And the transmission really hunts for the gear it needs to be in when you're towing with it. It's just not, it just feels like it's not really doing what it should be doing. Like if this were a manual transmission truck, I would not be revving it out that hard in places where this transmission thinks it needs to be at 5,000, you know, it doesn't really need to be that high. Now I could always put it into the manual shifting mode, and I probably will do that in the future. But I really wanted to get an idea of how this thing was going to handle the load, get an idea of what, without being in manual mode, how it acts, and see where I would make improvements and when I would shift it. So as far as being able to haul a car with this truck, I don't think I have any real issue with it. It wouldn't be the truck I would choose if you know, I owned like a landscaping company or something and I had a bunch of lawnmowers which weigh like the same as a car. You know, if you have like 3 or 4 zero-turn mowers, you get on a landscaping trailer and the trailer's going to be hooked up to the back of the truck all day, every single day. I don't think I would choose this truck for that. But if you're somebody like me, I probably haul, you know, a couple cars a month, but most of the time it's not hooked up to a trailer, then I think this is pretty decent. You know, I might take 1 or 2 long trips with a trailer behind it, but it's not a every single day affair. Just trying to live with it with a trailer would just kind of suck, you know, especially around town all the time, you know, revving this thing out to, you know, whatever, 4,000 or 5,000 RPM every time you take off from a light, even if you don't really need to be that high. That would just drive you nuts. So I might suggest getting a 5.3 or a 6.2 truck if that's your plan. But yeah, I hope you guys found this video a little bit informative. I tried really hard to find a video like this where somebody really goes through it and isn't just talking it up, is really being honest. Okay, so now that you get to see that it actually can haul a car, loaded car trailer, and does it really well, actually. I would say loaded, this thing performs about the same as my 5.4 Fords, and way outperforms the 5.9 gas engine in that Dodge that I had. That 5.9 gas engine could not pull. It just sucked a lot of fuel and didn't really have much power. Just totally straight up. Sorry guys, those of you that have a 5.9 second gen Dodge, those engines are garbage. I'll never buy another one, I'll tell you that. You know, this thing definitely has the power to do what I want to do. And the best thing about it is when it's not loaded, I'm getting well over 20 miles per gallon. Driving it hard with, you know, around town, I dip right to like 21, but on like a regular basis, I'm about 22, 23. The trip computer will tell me I'm getting 25 or 26, but it's really about 23 when it says it's that high. I don't know why there's that discrepancy, but a lot of vehicles have that problem. No, it does not pull anything like the diesel did, which is to be expected. A lot smaller of a motor, no turbo on it, run just regular pump gas in it. So of course it doesn't pull like that. But for what it is, you know, 90% of my driving, I would say, on a daily basis is just unloaded commuting. And then 10%, and a real 10%, because I think a lot of people will sit there and tell you that they tow a trailer 10% of the time. In reality, they're not really. They're towing a trailer maybe 1% of the time. I tow a trailer at least once or twice a week, and that really still only comes out to being about 10% of my driving. I mean, it'd be like you drive for 10 trips and then, or 9 trips, and then the 10th trip you have a loaded trailer. That would be 10%. So those of you that want to throw out there some false statistics on your driving, it's just not accurate. I truly to 10% of the time. So this is a really good fit for me. I did give some consideration to the EcoBoost Fords, and my concern with it is adding turbochargers to your engine just creates a lot of points of failure. In reality, you know, those are moving parts that you're adding to an engine that you know, require their own set of services, and they also offer their own sets of failures. It's harder on the engine, and like I said, you know, these are twin turbos, so you got two compressors on your engine that are spinning, you know, 100, 200,000 RPM when they're in use, creating all this extra cylinder pressure. I would rather have, for like a daily driver like this, an engine that's just a regular gas engine, I would rather have no turbos on it personally. You know, I'm not at the bleeding edge of technology here for what I need to do. You know, if you start getting into a diesel and stuff, the premise behind having a diesel is that you're always on the limit when you're towing, and you know, you don't have, you know, there's no way that they could build an engine into a pickup truck that would have that kind of power and headroom without a turbo. But you start getting into these Fords that are V6s with twin turbos, and as a technician, I just know that they cannot possibly engineer that to be more reliable to an equivalent motor without turbos that makes enough power. Mind you, those EcoBoost engines, they make almost 100 more horsepower, but you've got the lag from the turbochargers. So between the time that you're at zero to the turbos kicking in, it's a dog compared to this. This thing, in that gap, is much better. And then, yeah, once the turbos light up in the EcoBoost, you're good. But then you, like I said before, you've got that loss of reliability. I know people will try and say that the EcoBoost is plenty reliable, they haven't had any trouble with it, but I think there's a lot of them that we're going to start finding as stuff is coming out of warranty, as people are really as these trucks start to age, which ones are really going to hold up. There's just no way I can be convinced at this point that adding compressed air, which is what a turbocharger does, can be done as reliably as an equivalent engine without it. It's just not possible. It's just not in any way makes any sense. So that's why I kind of didn't get the EcoBoost. I could have gotten an EcoBoost truck for about the same price as this. The other thing is I've driven the EcoBoost truck, and yeah, it's very powerful, very fast for what it is. But I just didn't really like the way it drove. And I guess that's personal preference. But you know, I just didn't like that truck as much. It felt like everything on it was bloated, would be the word I would say. If you ever sit in a one of the newer F-150s and just look over the hood, it feels like just a large presence when you're inside of it. And I don't have the need to feel like the biggest thing on the road. I want something that does exactly what I want it to do. And I like the way this truck looks better anyway. And I couldn't find a Ford that was spec'd out as a regular cab short bed. They exist, I just couldn't find one for sale. Just straight up honest with that. So now that we've gotten past that, let's talk about some of the aspects of this truck I am not really a fan of. I guess the first things are going to be a couple of the ways that it's optioned. I wish it were optioned a little bit differently, and maybe I can change that in the future. Like I said, this is an LT truck, so I kind of got what I got, but I don't really like this chrome grille and chrome bumper setup. I would have rathered to have the painted grille and bumper, and this has the 17-inch steel wheels. I would have liked to have something more like the LTZ 20-inch wheels. I would really like to actually have the Denali wheels that they have on some of the Sierras. If I could find a set of those for a reasonable price, I'd probably go ahead and jump on those. Those are all 20s, so the cost of tires will be a little bit higher. But the tires on this, probably I'll have to replace in the next year. Part of why I got a pretty good deal on this truck, which I only paid 20 grand for this truck. For a 2016, I got it with 19,500 miles, $20,000. That's a steal. I think maybe just because it's a regular cab short bed, they just don't have that much value, but it was perfect for me. That's exactly what I wanted, so I'm really happy to have it. I would not have paid more for the extended cab, and especially not more for a long bed. So I did look at a few other trucks, some newer, some older. The 18 all the way up to 18, they were the same as this, but if you go older than 16, I started seeing other things I didn't like that I do like about this truck. So because it's a 16, it has a different hood than the 2014s and the 2015s. If you ever look, the 2014s and 15s just have like these solid blocks up the hood, and you know, it's an aesthetic thing, but I like this. It almost looks like a cowl hood with these little scallops in it. I like that. And I like the headlights more. It has like these slimmer headlights with HIDs and this little LED bar in it. So I do like that about this truck. I guess we'll go on to the inside and show you in there. So here's the inside now. This is what it really looks like when you use this truck. You know, you might see these trucks on the dealer lots and completely cleaned out, but this is kind of how things land when you have to live in it, so keep that in mind. It's always good to see how people live in their trucks. I think, you know, gives you an idea of how useful the space is, and I think the space in this truck has been used really intelligently as far as the center console, although I'm not a fan of how bad the center console shakes going down the road. Every time I drive this thing, loaded trailer makes it worse, but this center console just rattles like you wouldn't believe. And I don't know if that's true of the up option trucks, but it's true in this truck. So you'll have seen already what the interior layout is a little bit in the towing part of the video, but I'll show you one more time here. So just put the key in the on position. So start it up. So that's another thing. This thing has electric power steering, or electric assist power steering. This thing has electric assist power steering in it. So you know, there's that to keep in mind. Some people don't like that. I understand that they want to do away with the pump on the front of the motor, make it a little simpler, which I appreciate that a lot. So yeah, this thing has Apple CarPlay built in if you have an Apple phone. It also has Android Auto, which I haven't ever tried. So if you guys are familiar with it, you might want to look at some of the videos on Android Auto, because I don't have an Android phone. But as you can see, this is the cluster on it. Some of the, like the All-Star option pack trucks, they have a real screen in the cluster. This truck doesn't have that. It's a little bit lower option. So if you just have one that doesn't have the All-Star pack, you just turn this, and this will bring you through quite a few pieces of information. So give you an idea. We'll go through it from the start. So you can drive around with the screen blank if you wanted to. Give you your speed digitally, tell you your trip. So that's how far I've driven. I reset this when I first got it. So I've been 2,018.2 miles since I've had this truck. It gives you your fuel range. It actually goes really far on a tank of fuel. You know, over 600 miles if you fill it right to the top, according to that. Your average fuel economy, which is not super accurate. It's a couple miles off one way or another, I find. So your tire pressure monitors, your oil life, you reset that when you change your oil, tell you when it's time. Transmission temp, so that's pretty important, like you saw in the towing video there. And how many hours are on your engine, which is arguably better statistic to follow as far as your maintenance on the engine is concerned. The engine doesn't care how far you've driven, it cares how long it ran. So that's important. You can change that. And so I like to leave it on my average fuel economy, even though this isn't super accurate and I don't take it as gospel. I know that it's telling me if I'm driving it real hard, and you know, I kind of adjust how aggressively I'm driving based on that, and try and get that up a little more, which will help no matter what. And so if you don't want to plug your phone into it, the standard Mylink system here, that's kind of what you got. You got Bluetooth as well. I haven't really used it that way, so, but this radio is standard for the 2016 and up. Now for the 2014 and 15s and those two trucks, they can have this radio, the Mylink radio, but they don't necessarily have to. They also have like one with like a really small screen. Also, interesting enough, this truck does not have a backup camera. I kind of wish it did, just for the purposes of hooking up my trailer, but it doesn't have it. It also doesn't have, I saw some people talking about down here in the center console, in the bottom part, it can lift up. This truck doesn't seem to have that, and I kind of messed with it because my Dodge had that, and that was kind of like an interesting extra space. It also doesn't have an ashtray. I guess they just don't do that in trucks anymore, but it does have this compartment that I leave some stuff in. Traction control, the cargo light, that's just an override for the cargo light, so enabled, disabled. So I guess like right now, just sitting here in park, it will turn on my cargo lights, but if I'm driving down the road and I hit this, it'll disable it. So it's weird. So yeah, has 2 glove compartments, which is kind of nice, you know, gives you plenty of room to store all your stuff. I got some towels in there I forgot about. So there's that. Has automatic headlights. Does not have the factory brake controller, which I wish it did. Unfortunately, it doesn't, so that sucks. The door has 2 cup holders in it in this little pocket, so that's kind of nice. Give you a little more cup holders. And the steering wheel, some of these have the volume and radio controls on the steering wheel. This truck doesn't have that, so unfortunately. All right, so I guess the real question is now that I've had it and driven it for a good distance, and with as many other trucks as I've owned just in the last year, would I buy this particular truck again? And I would say I would. The only caveat to that, though, is I would really like to have one that had a 5.3 in it in the exact same spec, or 4-wheel drive. Although I don't think I would want to pay more for it. If I could get one spec that way for the same price, I would probably take that. Both of those options have some disadvantages, though, because you lose the fuel economy in both situations. But if I could find one for about the same price, spec the same, you know, with the short bed regular cab, I would probably go for that before I would go for this. But or if it were like a reasonable difference in price, because the V8 engine I think is only like a $1,500 option brand new. But sometimes I was seeing the price difference diverge pretty far between the two trucks. But I'm not unhappy with it. I wouldn't go and buy a different make and model truck over this one. I don't think I would buy a V6 truck like this with an extended cab. I don't think that would hold its value very well personally. But with this kind of level truck, I think for what you pay for it, the difference in value is going to be minimal, you know, compared to any other truck's loss in residual value. So anyways, I hope I made the video that I wanted to see before I chose this truck. That was the hardest thing for me. There wasn't really a lot of real world people that owned one of these that really talked about it, like it made a video about it. And you know, when I was trying to decide on a truck that I wanted, I couldn't find anything about these V6 engines in these trucks, which is a shame because there is a lot to be said about them. And everybody's interested in the 6.2 mostly, and a little bit in the 5.3, but nothing about the changes that they made to this V6, and I think that they're really important. So glad that I was able to make some information for you guys. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe for more. I'll catch everybody in the next one.